Hello and welcome to Media7. I'm Russell Brown. Nick Smith would have been expecting to be in the news this week. As local government minister, he was the face of controversial new legislation. But it was what he did in his former job as Minister for ACC that hit the headlines and prompted his resignation. But the case of the minister and Bronwyn Puller plays into a wider question of exactly what private information is fit to print, as Sam Mulgrew explains.
In mid-2009, two solo mothers spoke out over government plans to scrap the training incentive allowance. Punishment was swift. Minister for Social Development, Paula Bennett, leaked private details of the women's benefit payments to shut them up.
I was so upset. I couldn't believe someone could actually do that. Like, I thought we had privacy laws in New Zealand.
On the waterfront, the price of dissent was a leaked personal file with details of a port worker's bereavement leave.
His family have suffered the loss of a mother, and it's being used against them.
Now, ACC finds itself in hot leaked water. Personal details of 6,700 people were sent to ACC client Bronwyn Puller way back in August last year.
The primary information in the file was the client's name, their claim reference number and their branch number. There was no personal information included in the email.
He now admits that in some cases review outcomes were released.
Very miffed to know that that information had gone out.
And it seems these mistakes aren't all that rare.
So half a dozen times a year you get information about people who are not your clients?
That's correct.
And what sort of information?
Well, we're talking about claimant files.
Does ACC tell you it's rare?
Oh yeah, they tell me it's rare, but it's not rare.
The corporation claimed Puller and her advocate, ex-National Party President Michelle Boag, tried to use the mistake as leverage for getting a 2-year benefit.
It's a shabby little case involving blackmail, sex, a minister with a conflict of interest, and he should go now.
21 years in Parliament. This is a lot for my family. I've messed up, and I just apologise to all those people who I've let down. Thank you.
We wanted to hear Bronwyn Puller's side of the story, so we asked for an interview through her friend and former National Party President Michelle Boag. She later sent us a text message saying that the whistleblower had decided to, quote, stay lying low.
Expediency, it seems, trumps privacy.
I'm joined now by lawyer and blogger Scott York, who recently wrote a blazing post about the media's take-up of personal and family information about that Ports of Auckland worker Cecil Walker after it was leaked to another blogger, Cameron Slater. Welcome, Scott. You were outraged by the leaking of Cecil Walker's private information. Now we have the Bronwyn Puller case. How similar are the two?
I mean, on the face of it, there are a few similarities, but I think if you look at it, the reason that the Cecil Walker case really outraged me so much was it seemed like it was a deliberate and, on the face of it, malicious attempt by Ports of Auckland, or someone within Ports of Auckland, to effectively silence someone who was trying to fight for their job. It was leaked to a blogger who has, I guess, a reputation for publishing things that other people won't publish. So I think that there's a distinction between that case and the ACC one, and the ACC one involves a couple of privacy issues. There's the initial issue about the leak of information, the spreadsheet to Bronwyn Puller of the claimant information, which, as far as we know, although I've heard a lot of scuttlebutt in the social media and blogosphere about whether it was deliberate or not, I suspect was inadvertent. Still a serious issue, but there's no suggestion that it was a malicious leak. And then on the other side of it, you've got what appears to be potentially a malicious leak of details of Bronwyn Puller.
About Bronwyn Puller?
Yeah, exactly. Although I think you can still distinguish that, because I'm still not clear on what the purpose of that leak is. I mean, we've seen Nick Smith resign his portfolios. He's certainly been a victim of this, and I don't know whether the information leak about Bronwyn Puller was designed to teach her a lesson, or if someone else was actually the target. And I imagine we might hear a little bit more in the next few days. So there are some differences.
Can we place the two of them on a moral spectrum then, or is your right to privacy and not have your details published in the media absolute?
Yeah, I get uncomfortable when we start talking about sort of moral spectrums, when we talk about public agencies like ACC, ministers' offices. Ports of Auckland, although it's a company, it is ultimately owned by the ratepayers of Auckland. So I'd be reluctant to start talking about, when is it right and when is it wrong for public bodies and public servants to start releasing information that, on the face of it appears to breached the Privacy Act. So I don't think we want to sort of get down the realm of saying, well, public servants, you know, they have these obligations in the Privacy Act, but it's okay to ignore them if, you know, this person's a bad person or we need to teach them a lesson.
They had it coming.
They had it coming. I don't think that's the kind of judgments we want our public servants to be making. I think we expect them, I certainly expect them to uphold the law and to follow the Privacy Act. And I would cut the news media a little bit of slack because they need to make judgments about what's in the public interest, you know, what's newsworthy or not. But as far as I'm concerned, public servants shouldn't be breaching the Privacy Act.
The interesting thing I thought with the Cecil Walker case is that although it was leaked to the blogger Whale Oil and rather to the news media, they seem to absolve themselves of any kind of ethical agonising over that by merely reporting the fact that it had been leaked to him and this is what it said.
Yeah, I think Whale Oil, Cameron Slater, is a useful tool for some people. I think he does things on behalf of people that they don't dare do themselves. I think that's probably the reason why the information about Cecil Walker was leaked to him, because I imagine if it had been leaked to a mainstream media organisation, I don't know for sure, but I imagine they may not have published it. And I think he serves a useful purpose for the news media because they can report on Whale Oil rather than necessarily be the people breaching privacy, because what they're saying is, well, look what Whale Oil has done, look what he said. It's in the public domain, now we have the right to report it, and you know, we're not the guilty party.
Well, I guess the interesting thing there is that under the proposals being discussed by the Law Commission at the moment, that distinction would go away in a sense because he would be subject to the same overarching regulator as the newspapers were. Well,
potentially, depending on what the Law Commission decide and what this new media regulator looks like, and you know, whether someone can opt in to become a media person. I think Whale Oil has mentioned that he might be interested in sort of opting in.
Oh, I think he's absolutely put his hand up. He tried to join the Press Council.
Which is interesting when you think about the history of Whale Oil, where he's got this history of publishing stuff that other people won't, for various reasons, mainly legal ones, where people just won't go near. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, if that actually happens and what it looks like. But yeah, I struggle to see that Whale Oil would be able to follow the rules based on his current pattern of behaviour.
Do you think anyone in the media has got this worked out now? Because we had the Paula Bennett case, which did look like a breach of privacy. It's still with the Human Rights Commission. But again, the media felt able to publish those details because they'd been released. They hadn't even been leaked. They were simply released by Paula Bennett.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because there is obviously that argument that there is a public interest in this, and it's a news story. The woman, Natasha Fuller, she put this information out in the news media. Paula Bennett put out an alternative version. I guess the news media, they would be saying, well, it is newsworthy. I mean, my argument would be it's still arguably a breach of the Privacy Act. You know, it's personal information. It's information that shouldn't be in the public domain, but I guess the question is whose duty is it? I mean, arguably Paula Bennett has breached privacy, and that is yet to be determined. But I guess there are questions around what are the obligations of the news media in those situations? Do they have an obligation not to report the information?
Can we also talk about the obligations of social media, or is that just not relevant? Because you mentioned before you've seen all the rumours. And that happens on a daily basis.
It does. I mean, social media, the current blogosphere in the current environment, it's almost like anything goes. I mean, you can criticise Whale Oil for basically acting with impunity when it comes to things like name suppression and whatnot, but there are others that are doing it. And you know, if you read any number of blogs, you know, the main political blogs like The Standard and Kiwi Blog and so forth, some of the stuff that's being published is, you know, outrageous. Some of it's defamatory, in breach of probably privacy. But that's just the nature of the blogosphere. It's something that, you know, the mainstream media wouldn't go anywhere near because, you know, they have obligations. I'm not saying these people don't have obligations around, you know, defamation and so forth, but I think it's just that people just won't go there. That people, I'm not aware of anyone who's ever sued a blogger in New Zealand for defamation, but you know, maybe that will come.
It has happened.
Has happened? Okay.
Yes. A guy called Alan Brown.
Right.
There we go.
Right.
But yeah, I have to say that just in conclusion, the interesting thing for me about Whale Oil is that although he seems to be driven by a personal feud with Michelle Bogue, he's actually setting the pace on this story.
He is, and I suppose we've got to give him credit for that. And he has raised, I guess, the issue that some of what Michelle Bogue's saying seems to be slightly inconsistent with what Bronwyn Puller's saying. And I got to the stage where I actually don't know who to believe anymore. So, you know, I guess he is performing a useful function in that sense. On the other side of it, I suppose you could argue that some of what he's reporting maybe was private conversations, that maybe, even if it wasn't necessarily Privacy Act stuff, he shouldn't really be reporting what people have been telling him, because, you know, you do have to ask questions about the integrity of someone who, you know, gets told something in a personal capacity and then reports it on his blog.
Well, I doubt that anything we say is going to stop him, so
no,
thank you, Scott Yule.
Thank you.
We'll be back after the break with a tale of reputation and remuneration.